Johnny Rutherford began to raise his hands off of the steering wheel, saluting the fans here on the last lap. He is about a third of a lap away from victory. Doug.
And here he drops down into turn number 3, slowing up maybe just a little bit, it seems, into the short chute. Darrell, take him home.
Great round of applause, a waving to him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they call a checkered flag for the winner of the world's greatest auto race, the voice of the 500, Paul Page.
Number 4, the Pennzoil Chaparral, his hands in the air. Johnny Rutherford wins the 1980 Indianapolis 500-mile race. 197 laps complete, working on 198. We look for them now at the head of the main straightaway, and we have them coming now. There's Al, there's Mo, here's Jerry Baker.
There are 3 cars to work their way around. Now, Unser's got by one of them. He got by Rocky Moran, so Moran is now stuck in the between. Now, there has been a poly.
From Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth, Texas, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
The heat of the Texas sun. 24 degrees of banking in the turns. About a mile and a half. And bad, fast Verizon IndyCar Series cars. You just mix them all together. And you have preparations for the Firestone 600 here at Texas Motor Speedway. I'm Mark Janes. I atop the start-finish line here at Texas Motor Speedway. Happy to be joined by our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton. And Davey, hard to believe, this is event number 28 in Verizon IndyCar Series history here at Texas Motor Speedway.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, we've had more races here than any other racetrack that the IZOD IndyCar Series or Verizon IndyCar Series has been to. And what a great facility, Mark. I mean, this place has been around a long time. It doesn't seem like it's been around as long as it has, but it's been around a long time. Used to race here twice a year, and it's always fun to be back to this high-speed, high-bank, mile-and-a-half oval.
So the question would be, with the years that it has on it now, 1997, as I said, we've been here 28 times. Should be plenty of data available to these teams and drivers in terms of the setup, except for the ones, like Rossi and Connor Daly and Chilton, who don't have a lot of experience here.
Yeah.
So what about the nuances? Is this a bumpy surface, or is it still relatively smooth?
It's really pretty good. There's a few bumps in the tunnel in the middle of turn 1 and 2. Doesn't really affect you much, though, honestly. It's not like a huge bump that changes the characteristics of the car. But, the guys that haven't been here before, it is a challenge. It's just different going. You're racing so close to each other with the banking that you have. It gives you all the confidence in the world. But then you're on that edge, and sometimes it's easy to go over that edge. But as far as setups, these guys, most of them have it. Although you got to remember, this is a completely different aero kit this year for these guys. And by the way, another thing, it's heat of the day. These guys are going to be racing tomorrow night under the lights, and it's going to be cooler. It's going to no direct sunshine on the track, so the characteristics of the car from today qualifying to tomorrow's race is going to completely change.
Caution given by race directors in the drivers' meeting this morning about where the track hinges at the apron at the bottom of the racetrack. 1 and 3 are the worst, and I don't think that IndyCar was necessarily given thumbs up to the way that line was drawn at the bottom of the racetrack in 1 and 3, indicating that transition.
That's a really good point, Mark, because the line is actually on the bottom flat part of the racetrack instead of up on the racetrack. So some of our guys want to get down. They think they can get on that line. Well, once you hit that, it's a huge transition from the flat warm-up apron. And by the way, when you say the warm-up apron and you talk about bumps, it is very bumpy on the warm-up lane. So for these guys to get out of their pit stalls, get up to speed through 1 and 2, on that bumpy warm-up area, they have to be very careful they don't lose control there and slide up on the racetrack. But that transition and that hinge point is tricky. We've seen guys try to get down there before. It never works out. And by the way, even today, I think guys went out with a lot of confidence, like Gabby Chavez went out with a bunch of negative wing in it just to try to free the car up as much as possible. Then got loose. He already hit the wall today.
Gabby Chavez, again, the lone caution in terms of an incident in the first practice session this morning. Tony Kanaan, Scott Dixon, the top two, and Davey, Honda, Chevy, pretty much sprinkled among the top 10 evenly, although the fastest four were Chevrolets, Kanaan, Dixon, Newgarden, and Kimball.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in qualifying, because in those conditions they had a tow, they had a little bit of help, a car in front of them to tow them around this place a little bit. Now they're on their own. They're by themselves, and don't be surprised if we don't see the Hondas, kind of like we did at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, maybe be towards the top, but we'll soon find out.
Ed Carpenter, the first taker in qualifying of that 20 machine for Fuzzy's Ultra Premium Vodka. Davey, how tough is it for Ed being in a position where he's not driving on road and street courses and just driving the ovals? Is that hard to take a week off like he did and then get right back up to speed?
Yeah, where Ed is such a master on the ovals, and that's really his forte, and he just didn't feel confident and competitive on the road courses anymore. But Mark, when you get out of that car and you're not on that car week in, week out, it does take away that little bit of an edge, I have to say. And now, can Ed get it done on these ovals? Absolutely can, but I do feel there's a little disadvantage by not being in the car week in, week out. Even if you're not competitive on the road courses, you still have the environment of that race car and really get the feel of it.
For those of you who may not know, different from Indy and the fact that it is 2-lap qualifying, the average of 2 laps, the warm-up speed for Ed, 212.479. At least in qualifying, do you lift at all? And if you do, are you in trouble if you lift?
The crazy thing, when you come from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right, and it's 4 laps of hang on, your car's so trimmed, and you pray that the 4 laps that you get through it, because you're on that edge and the car's sliding around and you're hanging on. Completely opposite here. This is 2 of the easiest laps that you'll ever qualify, to be honest with you. With the fresh tires, the high banking, it's wide open the entire way around, and really with almost no challenge. So it's really up to the engineer more than the driver at this particular facility to be fast.
Lap number 1 at 216.132 through the dog leg. Start-finish line for Ed Carpenter. Checkered flag is out. Lap number 2 a bit slower, 215.371 miles per hour. The 2-lap average for Ed, 215.751. Any advantage going out early or late, or is it all pretty much going to be the same?
I think today it's going to be completely the same. I don't see any clouds in the sky. There's a few little puffy clouds out there. If you can be lucky enough to get one of those clouds to cover the sun while you're out there, that does create a bit of an advantage, even though it's so small, but it should be pretty equal for everybody.
Graham Rahal in the 15, putting his car through his warm-up paces. He had a gearbox issue earlier today, which ended his practice session early, but crew able to get that fixed and effect those changes in plenty of time. And again, he's getting ready for his warm-up lap. To kind of get us accustomed to covering this massive facility, we positioned Jake Query out on the course. Jake, you're high atop turn number 4.
That is indeed the case, and Graham Rahal on the opposite side of the racetrack, but still in view and will be coming this way. Good-looking car, that number 15. Between 3 and 4, he keeps it very low. Sparks come out from the bottom of the racetrack, that My Jack machine now onto the straightaway.
Very close to that outside retaining wall upon exit was Graham Rahal, lap number 1, waiting on the time and speed report after a warm-up lap of 212.054. Rahal already off of turn number 2, the halfway point of the back straightaway.
Interesting point. Typically when we see those sparks from the bottom, it's because we assume there's some full fuel tank weighing that car down. But Davey, you wouldn't expect him to have a lot of fuel in the car on a qualifying run.
Yeah, not at all. What they do is they get they take the fuel out of it, and they have just enough to get through these laps. But what they do, though, is they lower the car back down, and you got to remember they're on cold tire pressures just to get the max downforce. Now, one thing that we're watching Graham go around the racetrack, taking kind of the conventional line of being high in the straightaways, low on the corners, but don't be surprised to see some of these guys qualify and be on the bottom the entire way around, including the straightaways. When we used to qualify, we tried to make the shortest circle possible and stay on the bottom all the way around.
216.014, lap number 1. Lap number 2 for Graham Rahal, 215.840 miles per hour. The 2-lap average for Graham Rahal, a tick quicker than Ed Carpenter. Ed at 215.751. Graham Rahal at 215.827. Interesting comments by the 500 winner, Alexander Rossi, this week, already calling this his favorite oval.
Yeah, well, if I say him, I think I'd have my favorite oval, even though it's not a complete oval, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
That's a good point.
But that would be my favorite for sure, especially after winning the 100th. And you know, I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh man, it's he won it on fuel mileage." I go, it doesn't matter. You have to be fast all day. It doesn't matter if it's a strategy call or if it's a race down to the checkers. It's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He won the 100th, and that's it. And I'm proud of him. I think he did a good job, and he had a good strategy going into that thing. And I think that he may think of this place maybe a little different when it comes race time, because it is very challenging. The car, as the tires go off, it starts sliding around, and it's a handful to drive around this place. So we'll see after this race if it's still his favorite.
Warm-up laps by Tony Kanaan. We'll watch his qualifying run while we introduce Brad Gilly. Hello, Brad.
Hello, Mark Janes. I'm down here with Ed Carpenter. Of course, Ed, it never helps when you're the first one out because you don't really know how your time is going to compare to the rest of the field until we see a lot of other cars. That said, on average, about 3 miles per hour faster than what you were in practice. How do you think that's going to do where you wind up on the scoreboard, though?
I have no idea. We could be 5th or 20th. The first practice for us was just a nightmare. We had issues the whole time, self-inflicted and out of our control both. So the day hadn't gone how we wanted. Even at the start of the qualifying run, the car didn't want to start. So it's been a frustrating day. I really didn't know what I had going into qualifying. So I can't say I'm disappointed with that. I was hoping to be able to run something in that range. But based on what guys are doing so far here early, we're going to be starting in the back.
All right, thanks a lot. Maybe all the gremlins will get out of its way early here at Texas, and Ed Carpenter, who is a former winner at this track, could find a lot of speed between now and tomorrow, guys.
216.405 miles per hour for Tony Kanaan. Checkered flag is out. Lap number 2 is in the books. It's a good one. 216.185, the 2-lap average for TK. 216.295, Davey. That's a very consistent run.
Yeah, very consistent run, and I don't think Ed's going to be towards the back of the field. I think he's going to be maybe towards the middle, but one thing that I said earlier is where you qualify today and how your race car works to tomorrow night when your race is totally different. So even though you may not have a car that's super fast in the heat and qualifying trim, you may have a really good one when it comes race time. So it's going to be all mixed up, and that's one great thing about ovals, especially ovals like this one where they can run 2 and 3 wide. It doesn't matter where you start at all. There's plenty of time, plenty of laps to work your way to the front.
While that is true, the one issue with starting at the rear of the field is exposing yourself to potential problems early on that might not be of your doing it, and I think that's the main concern by these drivers.
Yeah, it is. And any time that you don't qualify, you always want to be towards the front regardless. Now, it's different on a road course to an oval, because in a road course you could take a different strategy. The ovals you can take a little bit different strategy, but it usually doesn't work out because you go a lap down when you pit. So you definitely want to be towards the front. That one little thing, we've seen it happen before, and unfortunately, the last one I was in was at Vegas when, a trigger went off and it was towards the front of the field, and it was a disaster. I was on a track like this, but majority of the time we can get through clean and green, and but you do that definitely. If you can start towards the front, you want to get it done.
Let's watch the run of Joseph Newgarden and welcome in Nick Yeoman.
All right, let's talk to Graham Rahal. I know gearbox issues kind of plagued and hurt the chances this morning to get a lot of running time. Does that temper those expectations when you come out for qualifying?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really know exactly where we'd be, but then again, I felt like we'd have a pretty good balance. Hopefully we could put a good lap in there, but we'll see. I'd expect 5 or 6 guys to be definitely quicker than us. But hopefully we can get a good top 10 start and be fine tomorrow.
All right, that's Graham Rahal. Joseph Newgarden out on the racetrack, Mark, and he just put down a very good first lap.
Back in front of Jake Query after a lap of 2:17.212, Jake.
Newgarden told me this week, wait till you see the race card. I'll tell you what, that Fuzzy's Ultra Premium Vodka green machine, and it's, how do I say it, kind of like a sour apple green, but a good-looking race car, a lot lighter color scheme than his owner and teammate Ed Carpenter, and Mark, quite frankly, a lot faster too.
Yep, 216.158 after an opening lap of 217.212. The 2-lap average for Joseph Newgarden, 216.684. Little by little among the fast cars, Davey speed started to climb a bit.
Yeah, they're starting to climb, and who would have thought, really, that 215.751 of Ed Carpenter would be the slowest so far. It's a little surprising that these guys are that fast. So
yeah, 2:15.7 is slow.
Yeah, right. But I'll have to say that I do feel that some speeds, we're going to start seeing a few slower speeds out of these guys. But I don't think that Newgarden, I mean, that's a good number, but I still feel we'll see some more guys in the 2:17 range.
So will the track rubber up during qualifying? We know it does during practice, but will it rubber up during qualifying?
Not much more of a difference for these guys. It's not. They've already had the few guys and the few laps that go down. Really won't make that big of a difference for these guys that are going late. It's pretty much the same for everybody. And you see how a lot of guys go to warm up. They'll warm up in that second or third line just to kind of get the momentum going on their warm up lap, and then they'll drop it to the bottom on their qualifying laps. But that rubber really won't play that big of a difference.
Carlos Munoz is next, and he's in the 26 machine. Let's go back downstairs with Brad Gilly.
Tony Kanaan, fastest in practice right now, second quick on the speed chart. I saw when you got out of the car, you were talking to a couple of your teammates. What were you telling them about what you experienced on your qualifying run?
I was just giving them tips about my run, how did I do it, what did I do, so try to help them out on their run. So hopefully that will help some of them. You know, we're one team here. We're trying to put all the cars in the top 10.
I know it's still early in qualifying, and right now you're the second quick. Do you think that's going to be enough to hang on to the front row?
Nah, not at all. I think we'll be probably, maybe in the top 10.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, there's Tony Kanaan.
Warm-up lap for Carlos Munoz at 214.385 off of turn number 4. White flag is out. Lap number 1 is a quick one, 217.211. Left side's near the wide line to the bottom of the racetrack. He'll swing it wide to the exit at 2. Carlos Munoz setting up for turn number 3.
It's in turn 4 primarily where those cars stay really low down to the bottom line. Carlos Munoz gets about 3 feet away from the white line, now tucks it back in towards the middle of the racetrack.
Checkered flag waved by Paul Blevins at the flag stand. Lap number 2, a good one, 217.063. 2-lap average at 217.137. First driver, Davey, to put both laps at 217.
Yeah, and I expect to see some more. And he's a Honda, and we knew those Hondas were going to be faster. We feel like they're going to be really fast. So he was, Ray Hall went out. There are only 2 of them been out so far, but that was an impressive 2 laps.
Will Power with the 2-lap average record at 219.182. The fastest qualifying lap in 2003 by Gilles de Ferran with a time of 222, or speed at 222.864 miles per hour. So Carlos Munoz joins Joseph Newgarden provisionally on the front row. Then we have Kanaan, Ray Hall, Ed Carpenter. Let's hear from Joseph Newgarden. He's with Nick Yeoman.
Yeah, Mark, 5 drivers have gone out, and all 5 have gone faster, so that slots Joseph Newgarden, as of right now, provisionally second quick. Talk us about your run. Happy about it?
Yeah, I mean, happy enough. I think we did a good lap on lap 1, and then, lap 2 just dropped off for some reason. So, I think the car was great. Really, no dramas from my end. I think the car handled really well. Just lost some speed there in the second lap, but regardless, I think we got a good car. If we can start inside the top 5, I think we'll be very happy with that. And then, we should have a good race car, I think, come to tomorrow night. I really think we've worked hard on that, and we should have a good product with the Fuzzy Special.
All right, he was awful fast in practice this morning. Joseph Newgarden, provisionally second. Mark, as our Indianapolis 500 champion is on the track.
Lap number 1, 216.578 off a warm-up lap at 215.252. In the shadows of the condominium complex in turn number 2, midway point of the back straightaway for Alexander Rossi.
Said, as you'd mentioned, Mark, that this is his favorite racetrack from when he tested here. Also said an Indianapolis restaurant, Big Lug, was his favorite place for wings. He got a whole plate full of them. I don't know whether it's weighing him down and slowing him down or not, Mark.
Might have did there. 200 might have done just that there. 215.947. The 2-lap average for Alexander Rossi, 216.262. Davey, we both pointed at the screen after that warm-up lap. We thought we expected something a little higher on that first lap.
That was the fastest warm-up lap we've seen at a 215.252. And just thought there was something there, but it actually, it didn't go up very much higher than that.
Now, I remember at Fontana, for instance, I believe it was Ed Carpenter on his warm-up lap, ran very high on the racetrack, up in the high groove, and really wasn't at full speed a tire-saving measure, I believe it was at the time, to really give those tires plenty of grip and full grip for the qualifying run. Any chance we see something like that here, or because of the configuration, that's a little tougher to do?
Yeah, a little tougher to do. You know, Fontana, you're right, Mark. They did that, and then that track's a little flatter. It's a 2-mile oval, so you lose grip quicker there than you do on this place. So I think you'll see when these guys pull out, whether it's a low line or a higher line, they're on the gas, getting that momentum up to get that green their second time by.
Brad Gilly, Carlos Munoz set the pace right now, 217.137, his 2-lap average.
That's right, P1 on the speed chart right now. Of course, his best qualifying effort here at Texas was 4th, 6th in practice earlier, so you guys have the consistency in being fast. Question is that fast enough for the front row?
I don't know, still a lot of cars to go. We still are 5th, so you have to check the other cars. But, if I'm honest, I didn't expect that speed. I was expecting like 16s, low 16s, like my teammate, like Rahal. But, it was a good run, I think. We'll see where I end up. Here it doesn't matter where you start. I think you have to have a good car. It's like the tire degradation is a lot, like was been in all these years. So it doesn't matter where you start, but you have to have a good car.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Carlos Munoz again, P1 right now, guys.
Warm-up lap 209.378 for Juan Montoya. Lap number 1, 215.492. Montoya not going to be happy with that warm-up lap. Stuck to the bottom of the racetrack upon exit of turn number 2, toward the outside retaining wall all his way for turn number 3.
Montoya now keeps it down to the white line between 3 and 4. As a matter of fact, hugs that white line all the way around before then getting a little bit high. Markey kept it a little lower out of 4 than others.
Checkered flag is out. Lap number 2, Davey, 215.067, the 2-lap average for Juan Montoya. 215.279, our slowest qualifier.
Yeah, and he's not going to be happy with that whatsoever. And I seen an interview with him after practice, and he just, he said they were struggling to get the car right and just trying to get the balance. He said they couldn't find it at Indy. They come here, they just don't have what he really likes as a car. Not only they don't have the handling like he liked it, they definitely don't have the speed. I mean, he's a half a mile an hour slower than the next slowest guy, which is Ed Carpenter in that 6th position.
He was the fastest in practice this morning, and he was 8th quick. Power was 9th quick. Pagano was 12th quick, and Castro Neves 14th quick. The Penske cars after practice this morning.
Yeah, not where they want to be, and not where we're used to seeing them be. But like I say, don't forget, it's completely different from qualifying to race. And I just have a really good feeling that Penske guys, they'll all find their way when it comes to race time.
Pagano will be next. Scott Dixon, one of the fast guys and the defending race winner, still to come. Others that could be a threat for the pole, assuming Will Power made some changes from that session today. Charlie Kimball ran in the top 5. Elio Castro Neves, Marco Andretti also fast in the practice session this morning. So some of the drivers that we expect to be a threat for the pole, what they're aiming for is the 2-lap average by Carlos Munoz at 217.137. Joseph Newgarden, for now provisionally, is in row number 1 as well, 216.684. Tony Kanaan at 216.295 in row number 2, along with Alexander Rossi in the 98 at 216.262. Rahal, Carpenter in row number 3. Juan Montoya, again, our most recent qualifier. Nick?
All right, let's hear from Alexander Rossi. I understand that you were kind of flying solo out there. No radio communication during that qualifying run?
It was a bit of static, so it was very difficult. I mean, obviously these Honda engines are quite sensitive to the settings that we put into them, so I was kind of just winging it. So it's a shame to lose performance off of something so simple, because the Cauchy Edge curb car was great. So
he was still very quick in practice this morning, though, Brad Gilly.
Juan Pablo Montoya, one more practice session still this evening to find some more speed for tomorrow night's race. What are you looking for in this number 2 car?
To be honest with you, is stability. Like I think we gained on it a lot this morning. For qualifying, it's hard. I don't think we just didn't trim enough, but it seemed okay.
All right, thanks a lot. There's Juan Pablo Montoya.
Lap number 1 for Pagano. Simon Pagano, a good one, 216.824. The points leader already down the midway point of the back straightaway, Jake.
Best finish is 4th at Texas for Simon Pagano, but this guy's been obviously on a hot streak all year long. Seems to be acclimating now to the ovals. Very, very clean line for Pagano down to the bottom of the track out of 4.
Checkered flag, lap number 2, a bit slower, 216.502. He misses Newgarden and gets bumped out of the front row. It's the inside of row number 2 right now. The 4-lap average for Simon Pagano among the 8 qualifiers, 3rd quick at 216.663. And even though he's had a couple of bobbles of late, Davey, an 80-point lead at this point of the season, pretty impressive. When you win 3 in a row, you're going to have a lead.
Yeah, it seems like every race we go into, he comes out with a bigger points lead, no matter what happens to him. But one thing I noticed about Simon, and I'm a little surprised, I haven't drove these cars with the new aero kits and the way the rules package is today, but I'm really surprised that we don't see that tight line around here where they follow the white line all the way around to make that shorter circle. Simon did it more than anybody right there. He was more middle of the track in the straightaways and on the bottom, but I don't know why they're not doing it or if the cars are uncomfortable or what's going on there, but I'm really surprised that because, as you remember, Mark, not too long ago, that's how every single car would qualify, just being right around the bottom. And a lot of guys maybe, I kind of forgot that strategy, or the car just doesn't feel good down there.
Scott Dixon is up next. He is a pole contender for sure. To that end, Davey, let's discuss what sort of changes, how many changes. Will they make many changes between qualifying trim and race trim before we go racing tomorrow night?
Well, there's not a lot of huge changes, honestly, between qualifying and race, but there are some, and I think that's going to be really something that they're going to really try to tune in, dial in at their last practice tonight. I mean, it's not race condition time, but it's closer and getting out there with all the cars. And I would have to say, with these configurations, a little more downforce. I think downforce is going to be key to where they don't really, their minimum right now, race time, they're going to add a little downforce because there's going to be a lot of dirty air with when you get all the cars out there at one time.
6:45 Central, the final warm-up session. It's a 30-minute all-skate, and we think it's going to be plenty entertaining. Again, we think this is a pole contender. It's Scott Dixon. He was one of the fast guys today, second quick, in fact, at 216.613. One lap is in the book for the number 9 target car, 217.185. That is provisionally good enough for the pole. Scott Dixon out of turn number 2 aims it toward turn 3.
If there's a bump between 3 and 4 going over that tunnel, you certainly didn't see it first time by with Scott Dixon in very, very firm control of that number 9 machine. Wheels along the white line all the way till the very end of turn number 4.
Lap number 2 in the books. It's slower, and it's good enough for P2. 216.617, the 2-lap average for Scott Dixon. 216.901 as qualifying continues for the Firestone 600 here at Texas Motor Speedway.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires, we make champions. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
The Sports Car Vintage Racing Association returns to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 3rd annual Brickyard Vintage Racing Invitational, featuring over 500 vintage race cars. It's Father's Day weekend, June 16th through the 19th. Get your dad a gift he'll never forget and bring him to see the Indy Legends Pro-Am Charity Race, pairing pros and amateurs driving Camaros, Mustangs, and Corvettes. Experience something cool with your dad for this Father's Day weekend. Tickets start at just $5. Children 12 and under are free. For tickets and information, go to ims.com.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at the Texas Motor Speedway, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Mark James, Davey Hamilton. We're watching the run of Ryan Hunter-Reay, qualifying underway for the Firestone 600. Back to pit road, Nick Yeoman.
Let's hear from our points leader, Simon Pagenaud, who is provisionally 4th right now. How smooth was that run here at Texas Motor Speedway?
Yeah, the HPE car was really good this weekend, so I'm really pleased with the balance and the setup in general. I feel like we got a really strong race car. Qualifying here is 2 laps. There's a lot of tire degradation, and that's what Firestone wanted to make the racing more interesting. So it's interesting to see what are the fast cars on one lap and what are the fast cars on long run. So we're hoping to be strong on the long run, and I think this morning showed that, so I'm pretty happy.
All right, that's our points leader, Simon Pagenaud. Mark, he's visited victory lane 3 times already this season.
216.573, lap number 1 for Ryan Hunter-Reay. Lap number 2 at 215.947. Well, that second lap cost him a bit, Davey. He was in row number 3. He slipped to the inside of row number 4 provisionally. 2-lap average for Ryan Hunter-Reay, 216.260. Davey, the margin between success and failure here is just so incredibly small.
When you get your second lap, just a half a mile an hour slower than your first lap, Mark, and it drops you from 3rd on the grid to the fourth row inside, right? I mean, pretty amazing on how close that was. I mean, I was surprised to see him drop from, those 2 rows.
I know you've said that it's possible to be in competition here starting from near the rear of the field because of how long this race is and how fast it is and how well it races. But let's face it, if for whatever the reason you can't get a handle on it, this is not the kind of place where you don't want to have an ill-handling race car here. Period.
And unfortunately, I raced her quite a few times, and I remember a couple of them that it was like, man, this can't get over fast enough. It was just one of those cars. When you don't have a car that doesn't have grip, or you can't run in traffic, or it just doesn't have that power, the aero package is too much to pull the speed. It's a miserable day. So there's somebody that we're looking down on there tonight is going to have that. But then I remember the times where the cars were so close and there wasn't a lot of changes we could do. And I remember Al Unser Jr., I think, won the race. And, one lap you'd be in first, the next lap you'd be in fifth, the next lap you'd be in 10th, and you'd be back to second. I mean, it was the entire race, Mark, of side by side, nose to tail, front to back. You didn't know where you're going to be from one lap to the next. And when that race got over, I mean, I think every single driver was so physically and mentally spent that we thought, wow, how can we continue to do this? It was a challenge. I remember Al Jr. going, man, wasn't that fun? I go, I don't know if I had that much fun or not. And I finished second or third in that race, so I had a good finish. It was just a huge challenge, and it's a little bit different racing today. As Simon said, tires play such a big part, because when you start wearing that tire down, the car starts sliding around. You can't just go around here flat out.
Getting ready to make his 200th consecutive start, Brad Gilly. You're visiting with Scott Dixon.
I am. 217 miles per hour the first lap. We thought you were going to be on a pole run there, Scott. Second lap obviously knocked you down to P2. Is there that much fall off, that much degradation in the tires just over the course of a couple laps?
Yeah, I think even the engine does. I think with heat, it's really cool when we start up. We try to start the cars as cold as possible, and then as they heat up, you lose a bit of plenum temp. So that definitely alters, straight line speed, but the tires are falling off too, just because you're so trim. You could run around here all day long doing 210s, but that's not going to get you too far. So really happy with the target car. I think everybody did a great job. We missed a little bit there, I think, but all in all, I think for an effort for us, that was pretty good.
He's a defending race winner. There's Scott Dixon.
215.175, lap number 1 for Max Chilton. He comes through the turn 4, 24 degrees of banking. It's down the main straightaway. Lap number 2, decidedly slower, 214.864, the 2-lap average for Chilton. So again, 215.175, lap number 2, 214.553. He had an opportunity to test here, Davey. Yep. Rossi has tested here. And for Connor Daly, who's coming up soon in qualifying, it's the first time he's ever raced here.
Well, and I think back to Chilton a little bit, he crashed at the Speedway. He crashed twice at Detroit. In each race, he got in an accident. I think he's probably going, wow, what's it going to take just to not get myself introduced to this wall, right? I mean, just let's be safe, let's be conservative, let's just put more of a race car in there, and back to Connor Daly, that he has to be careful as well. His teammate this morning went out a little bit too trimmed out and found himself in the wall.
As we watch the run of Mikel Aloshin, let's head back to pit road. Nick Yeoman.
All right, Ryan Hunter-Ray, his qualifying run on the DHL Honda is complete. 9 starts here, still looking for that first win. What's the most difficult thing about this racetrack?
It's just really hard to get the setup exactly as you need it. That's the worst part about it, is just trying to get the setup in that very small operating range. Every year it seems to get trickier too. So with the track surface seems to be a little bit rougher every year, and eating up those Firestones more and more. So we'll see. We'll try to have a good night tonight and set up for tomorrow.
All right, that's Ryan Hunter-Ray, provisionally marked. He is 7th quick out of the 11 cars. Just another one of those drivers looking forward to that half-hour practice session later tonight.
Lap number 1, 215.511 off a warm-up of 214.469 to turn 3 is the 7 of Mikel Aloshin.
Aloshin, one start here. He started 11th, and he finished with that car number he's piloting, that's 7th. No problems for Mikel Aloshin in that Doom machine out of 4.
Comes to the checkered flag, lap number 2, pretty consistent, 215.088 miles per hour. The 2-lap average for Mikel Aloshin provisionally on the outside of row number 5 at 215.299 miles per hour. Again, Mark James, Davey Hamilton, Jake Query out on the course. We have Brad Gilly and Nick Yeoman down on pit road. And so, Davey, one of the most important 30 minutes that these cars and drivers will spend here all weekend is that final warm-up, because that's going to give you an idea of how the car is going to race.
You know, I used to come here and run very few laps, and if you look at the laps ran in the practice earlier, there's not a lot of laps by any of these guys, and so we used to always just try to do a sim qualifying run, just keep the miles off the car, go get qualifying done, and then just wait for tonight's practice session. You can see right now, maybe a little cloud cover for Connor as he comes out down there in turn 1 and turn 2, which could help him out a little bit. But you're right. You really waited for that afternoon session, because that's the one that counted. You can go out there with traffic, your full fuel load. You find out what your car is doing in dirty air, and that's the most important session of the weekend.
We know what wind does to a race car at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's always gusty here. How big of an impact is it?
It is an impact, but not near what Indianapolis Motor Speedway brings. With this high bank, it really kind of hides some of that, and you get so much load because of the way this track's designed. And you're down in a bowl here. You're really down inside of a bowl. And grandstands the majority of the way around this place with Big Haas TV screen and the Speedway Club and the condos. Between all that, it's pretty protected down that low. So wind does affect you, but not a lot.
Warm-up lap for Connor Daly at 206.957 miles per hour. Been no consistency among those warm-up laps. Even fast guys have had some slower ones. Lap number 1 in the books, it's a slow one at 213.641, about a mile and a half slower than Max Chilton. Connor Daly exits turn number 2 and is already in turn number 3 in front of Jake Query.
Daly's done a nice job this year of working his way through races from qualifying positions that may have been further back than where he started. Mark, he might have to do that same thing again tomorrow night.
First time someone's gone quicker, lap number 2, 214.012. The 2-lap average for Connor Daly, provisionally the inside of row number 7 at 213.826.
Yeah, and even though he went faster on that second lap mark, he's a 1 mile an hour slower than the next guy in front of him. So you got to remember that team had a wrecked car with Chavez this morning, and so they're probably being really conservative with Connor. But they do definitely need to find some more speed for tomorrow.
Not sure if it was the need to debrief, share something with another driver, or perhaps just the frustration of the moment. But Max Chilton did not make himself available initially for a chat after his qualifying run. Maybe we'll catch up to him later, perhaps not. Maybe that'll have to wait until the pre-race tomorrow. Mikel Aloshin, Connor Daly, the most recent qualifiers. Here's who is to come. It looks like Takuma Sato, Will Power, James Hinchcliffe, Charlie Kimball, Elio Castroneves, one to keep your eye on, looking for his 5th win here at Texas Motor Speedway. Sebastian Bourdais coming off his win in race number 1 at Detroit last weekend. Marco Andretti and the 41 of Jack Hawksworth. So qualifying continues in preparation for the Firestone 600. Again, we'll have all the action for you tomorrow beginning at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. Right here on all the usual outlets. The ABC supply machine of Takuma Sato makes its way around the course, and Davey, it doesn't look as though that they're going to be able to make repairs in time enough to the car of Gabby Chavez to get him through the qualifying line.
That was a big hit, Mark, and when I seen that, more than likely it's a spare car they're going to have to bring out and get an engine in and so forth. So we're more than likely they'll get hopefully get that fixed for tonight's practice session to get some laps in it before tomorrow's race.
Green flag is out for Takuma Sato while he works on his qualifying run. We'll go back downstairs to Nick Yeoman.
All right, let's grab a quick word with Mikel Aloshin, driver for Schmidt-Peterson. You know, the motto here at Texas Motor Speedway is no limits. You got to be fast, you got to be brave. I think that kind of describes you. You like this racetrack?
Yeah, I think it's a great racetrack, and it's one of my favorites because there's not only one line, there's 2 lines here, at least 2 lines, maybe 3, or maybe 4 if you're Russian. So I'm gonna use everything I can, to be at the top, because I think that the team is pretty competitive, and it's gonna be competitive in the race, as always. So, we just go from there.
All right, that's Mikel Aloshin. Mark Janes, that might be the line of the weekend right there.
2-lap average for Takuma Sato, 216.740 lap 1, 216.878. Lap number 2, 2:16.602. Brad Gilly. That puts Sato provisionally on the inside of row number 2.
Yes, it does. And Connor Daly, it wasn't until about 11 o'clock this morning that he had taken his first laps here at Texas Motor Speedway. Obviously, I know you want to find more speed with this number 18 car. What do you feel you need to do in this final 30-minute practice session coming up to get that?
I mean, we started on an island this morning. We were way off, and I mean that was my first lap flat all around. It was just in qualifying, so it hurts when we don't test here. We were one of the only teams that didn't test here, and that was a shame. But I mean, it's a long race. I just hate that we have to start in the back yet again. So we'll see what happens.
All right, good luck to you.
Thanks.
All right, Connor Daly's going to have his work cut out for him tomorrow night, guys.
Kid had the best weekend of his young career in Detroit last week.
Yeah, he did. You got to remember Del Coyne and strategies that he comes up with on these road courses, street and road courses, are amazing. And he did another one for Connor. Found himself running his best finish of a second in Detroit in the first race.
Well, a guy that's in search of momentum may have just found it in Detroit, as a matter of fact. Will Power puts his car through the paces. His warm-up lap of 214.488. Looking to go back-to-back, get back into the battle for a points championship. Jake, he's setting up for turn 3.
The last of the former Texas winners that are trying to qualify today. Will Power out on track, and he seems to keep a much lower line between 3 and 4 than did Sato. Power's run is complete.
Lap number 1 in the book. It's a fast one, but not quite fast enough. 217.065. Will Power exits turn number 2 and aims it down the back straightaway, Jake.
I completed him a lap early. Will Power still on his horse and still on it quickly. That silver machine, of course, Verizon number 12. Sun dancing off of it now as he comes out of turn number 4.
Aiming for Carlos Munoz, your pole sitter. For now, he knocks Dixon off the front row, but that's second lap, Davey. What a fall off. 216.231. Power falls from the front row all the way back to the outside of turn 3. 216.647.
And all I could say is he must have just lost grip that second lap. He made the biggest circle I think that you could possibly make around this racetrack. I mean, he was fairly low on the corners, but he went all the way up to the wall, not only in the back straightaway, but the front straightaway, which you don't have to do that when your car's not that good, and just made the biggest circle. And I thought, wow, his car must be fast, making such a big line. But then when that speed came across, knocking him from that second to sixth spot just because of his second lap.
So we've got Munoz and Newgarden on the front row. Takuma Sato, Nick Yeoman provisionally on the inside of row number 2.
Yeah, and with just 6 drivers left, I think this is going to turn out to be a pretty good qualifying run for Takuma Sato. Happy to be provisionally third?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Had a little sketchy the test session in the morning, but the guys did a great job. The engineer worked pretty hard, so car worked really well.
At this racetrack, doesn't it almost have to be a little sketchy, though, to go fast?
Well, it's true, and particularly with a little bit windy and obviously this temperature killing for the grips, but that's why every team is going more downforce, less downforce, some strategy divided. I think we did a great job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Great job by Takuma Sato, provisionally third, Mark.
Green flag is out for the mayor of Hinchtown, already setting up for turn number 3 off a warm-up lap at 212.919 miles per hour. To the dog leg, setting up for the start-finish line. Lap number 1 of the book for Hinch. Not bad, 216.329. Provisionally good enough for the inside of row number 4. James Hinchcliffe off of turn number 2 of the midway point of the back straightaway.
The gold top of that machine, that Aero machine, which they struggled to find speed, Mark, in the practice session this morning and called it early so they could go back and look at telemetry. They didn't test here, but it looks like they might have found a little something.
Checkered flag is out. Pretty consistent run for Hinch at 216.194 off of 216.329. 2-lap average for James Hinchcliffe. Provisionally good enough for the inside of row number 5 at 216.262 miles per hour. Sense a little frustration in the voice of Connor Daly when we spoke with him moments ago.
Yeah, and as Connor said, they didn't test here, and just he has to start in the back again. And one thing, I guess, to be comforting, he's going to be back there with his teammates, so maybe they could team up together, work with each other, and try to drive their way to the front. But to do that, they are going to have to find some more speed. I mean, that was a qualifying run, and we're going to see race laps in those speeds tomorrow. So
now James Hinchcliffe completes his qualifying run. Just 5 remaining. Kimball, Castro Neves, Bourdais, Marco Andretti, and Jack Hawksworth. Hawksworth is last in line. We see Snapple sponsorship on that yellow and blue machine of Marco Andretti. It waits patiently, as does the Hydroxy Cut number 11 of Sebastian Bourdais, the AAA sponsored machine of Elio Castro Neves, and just in front of them, Charlie Kimball rolls away back at that 83 number after wearing 42 during the month of May. And Davey, pretty good weekend in Detroit for Charlie Kimball. He got himself a top 5.
You know, one thing about Charlie, it's so I'm still not used to the black and green car after he had such that day glow orange and blue car that he had last year. So definitely doesn't stick out like it used to. But I'll tell you, this kid really has some consistency now. You can't ever count him out. He's won some races. He can win races, and we don't talk about him a lot. He's just kind of there. But man, I'll tell you what, he could put it in victory circle at any time. And I really like the consistency that he has. I feel the confidence I think that he's really built over these years, and with the same team. And he's done a great job.
Will Powers downstairs. He has completed his qualifying run, Brad Gilly.
And he had won the last 3 poles in a row here at Texas. Of course, the big winner on Sunday at Detroit. Will, you guys have been looking for some speed today in practice. Right now, P6 up on the speed chart. How do you think this car is going to race? What do you need to do in practice?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, obviously the qualifying is a lot different to the race stuff, but it's a good question tonight. We've got to change a lot of stuff. I don't think our car's in the window we need it to be in, and we've got to try a bunch of stuff and see what we get out of this 30-minute session.
Good luck to you. There's Will Power.
Lap number 1 of the books, 215.905, a little slower than Charlie would like. Provisionally on the outside of row number 6, Charlie Kimball sets up for turn 3.
Davey was talking about it, the consistency of Charlie Kimball, one of those that we expect to see in the top 10, bringing equipment home clean. Question now, can he bring it home safe? He takes it, he stayed way low to turn out of turn number 4 there, Mark, than he did the previous lap.
And Davey, he trailed off lap number 2. He went from a 2:15.9 to a 2:15.1. 2-lap average for Charlie on the inside of row 7. Not going to be happy with that run with a 2-lap average of 215.533.
No, just as we said, it seems like maybe the tire wear and the engine's being a little bit hotter, like the plenum temperature being hotter, and that's there that goes inside that motor to make power. And the cooler it is, the more it makes. So each lap they make, it gets hotter and hotter. So just these second laps all fall off, other than the one that we've seen from Connor.
11 sets of tires over the course of this weekend, and they're going to maximize the potential use in each set of those Firestone Fire.
Oh, yes, they are. I mean, and one thing that they've done with Firestone is I think they kind of ask him to bring a tire that's not so good. These guys can make tires so good and so consistent, but I think that the teams and the drivers and the series really wanted a tire to wear off a little bit more, to make it so the car's not so stuck down at the end of a run. And I think Firestone's done a great job making a tire to make it exciting for all of us.
Nick Yeoman.
All right, let's catch up with James Hinchcliffe. Let's see. 9th quick out of the 17 of the qualified. That's going to put you right in the middle of the field and probably going to shake out that way when we get done. How tough is it racing into turn 1 tomorrow night, knowing that you've got bees swarming all around you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for sure. This place is it's a fun track to go racing on. At least we know that there's a bunch of different lanes. So, being back there, row 5, row 6, wherever we end up, it's we know we've got options. At least we're not all trying to file in single file getting in there. So we'll see how it goes.
Your teammate just told me there's 3 racing grooves here, 4 if you're Russian, 5 if you're Canadian.
No, I think I'll leave the Russian atop that list. It is. I mean, there's a lot of lanes. I mean, the high line's getting really bumpy as the years go on. It's getting tougher and tougher, especially in turn 3. But I think you're going to have to be up there at some point during the night. So we're going to have to find a way tonight to make it work.
All right, appreciate it, James Hinchcliffe. Provisionally 9th quick, Mark.
Green flag is out for Elio Castro Neves. Let's take a peek at that warm-up lap at 210.686 miles per hour. Yellow and blue paint scheme, AAA, the sponsorship this weekend off of turn number 2 down the back straightaway is Elio Castro Neves.
Seemingly every inch of fencing in this place has been climbed by Castro Neves. He's won here 4 times. Castro Neves now keeps his car far away from that fence, low out of turn number 4, keeps it down low now as he takes the flag.
Yep, cuts that final corner off on his opening lap. Not bad, provisionally inside of row number 2. 216.856, Elio Castro Neves down the back straightaway.
Castroneves has just one pole here at Texas, and as you had mentioned, Mark, probably not going to get a second one, but yet it remains to be seen. Works his way now, keeping it low out of turn number 4.
Checkered flag is out for Helio Castroneves. Pretty consistent run. Second lap off of 2:16.8 at 216.625. The 2-lap average good enough for the inside of row number 2 at 216.740 miles per hour. And Davey, they're all pointed Carlos Munoz. A pretty impressive run. The only one in the 217 range. Carlos 2-lap average 217.137.
Yeah, good run. And I really don't know. I don't see anybody beating him. And there's only 3 cars left to go. Bourdais, Andretti, his teammate, and Hawksworth. Andretti, you never know what he has up his sleeve. I think Marco likes this place. Matter of fact, I know he does. And don't know if his car has the speed to beat that. But right now, it's looking good for Carlos.
This would be the first pole of his career. And believe it or not, Davey, getting ready to make his 46th start of the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Yeah, how it goes so fast, Mark.
And that kid, I'll tell you what, he's got the Indianapolis Motor Speedway figured out, so it only stands to reason he'd be fast
Yeah, he's
here.
got 2 seconds there. I remember as a rookie him there, and he's running such a different line than everybody else, and all the veterans and that's that have been around are saying, "Wow, he's gonna crash hard. He's taking such an unconventional line, and the corner's running way too low." Well, not only did he get away with it that year and ran second, he did it again this year, along with a lot of the veterans finding that line being the fast way around, and found himself second again, only to his teammate on a fuel mileage race. So this kid, he knows he's going to be in victory circle more than the one time that he's been soon.
Race 1 winner, Sebastian Bourdais, qualifying now. We'll watch it and send it down to Brad Gilly.
Charlie Kimball, you're going to have to pass some cars tomorrow night on your way to the front. The question is, how hard is it going to be to pass cars in the 248 laps that you got?
Well, I think as the race develops, you'll see guys with better cars going forward and guys with not as good cars not being able to stay up front. So qualifying is important around here, but it's not the be-all, end-all. The 83 car is pretty good in race trim, and I think the Novo Nordisk Chip Ganassi Racing guys are going to be always, all year, they've been great in the pit lane. So I've got a lot of tools in my arsenal to try and move forward throughout the race.
You seem to take a lower line than what a lot of other drivers did out there in qualifying. Did that help you or hurt you?
You know, we'll have to go back and look at some data. It's nice having a couple of teammates starting up front, so we'll be able to go learn from them and see what they did, what lines they took, track distances, that sort of thing. But you know, I think it's nice to see, so far at least, the target car for Chip Ganassi Racing on the front row.
It was Charlie Kimball.
Carlos Munoz, just saw a shot of him on the video board. This is an excruciating weight. 2-lap average for Sebastian Bourdais. Davey, he's not going to be happy. 215.030. They missed it big time on that 11
They
car.
did miss it, but you know, one thing with Sebastian, he's not going to qualify good on an oval. He doesn't really. I mean, these are his least favorite tracks. He'll be the first one to admit it to you. Now, that could be his race setup. He may not even just be messing around and say, hey, put a race setup and get me comfortable. Let me have a car that's good, you know, the entire time, not hanging it out. So it doesn't surprise me that he's back there, but then again, he can surprise it when it comes race time.
Well, there are 2 bullets left in the gun, if you will, in terms of those that have a shot at Carlos Munoz. One of them is the 27 of Marco Andretti. The other is the 41 of Jack Hawksworth. Marco Andretti is a threat. He was 5th quick in the 27 machine in the practice session. Jack Hawksworth was 17th quick. So, Davey, of the 2, you would think Marco would be the one with the most likely shot.
Yeah, I would pretty much safe to bet that an Andretti car is going to be on the pole. The question is, an Andretti car is going to be on the front row. That's going to be the question. We'll soon to find out. I think Hawksworth, you know, Sato, his teammate, ran 4th, but I don't think Hawksworth has quite that speed, so we'll probably find him more middle field, but we'll find out right here what Marco could do.
Marco exits pit road in that Snapple machine, climbs up that 24 degrees of banking in a hurry, gets through the gearbox in a hurry, and gets full song now as he sets up for turn number 3. Davey, on this qualifying procedure, when you get up on the racetrack, do you get through that gearbox as quickly as you can?
Well, not as quick as you can. You want to wait until every gear you maximize it. When you see those shift lights come on right before it hits the limiter, you want to shift at that point. So it's wide open. Make sure you get the max out of every single gear just to get that top speed up as quick as possible.
Brad, we'll watch Marco's run. You talk to Helio Castroneves.
Right now, Helio is P3 on the speed chart. Now, a lot of drivers went out there, made a really fast first lap, but not quite as fast of a second lap. It seemed like you were pretty consistent. In fact, you were 3rd quickest on your first lap and stayed there. What does that say about maybe what you might have when it comes to actually running a lot of laps tomorrow night?
No, that's a great observation. In fact, I was looking at the tires, and the tires seem to be on spot, and
believe it or not, this is the setup of a race car, and we just took some downforce, and it looks pretty strong. So I'm very happy with the AAA machine, and now we got to make it happen this evening and tomorrow evening.
You've got 4 cowboy hats already from Victory Lane. I think it's time for a 5th. What do you say?
I totally agree with you. You see, that's why I like you.
Big smile on the face of Helio Castroneves right now, guys.
Well, it's not going to be a pull run for Marco Andretti. Jake Query, 216.196 on lap number 1.
Yeah, Marco Andretti, of course, we know that Honda power plant underneath that Snapple machine has some giddy up to it they've found lately, but Marco Andretti's trying to fight it. He keeps it low out of turn number 4.
Lap number 2, pretty consistent off at 216.196. Lap number 2 at 216.127. Marco probably not going to be happy at 216.162. That's provisionally good enough for the outside of row number 6 with his teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay. Unless the mindset is kind of like what we just heard from Helio Castroneves. You maximize what you can in qualifying, but the focus has been on the race car.
Yeah, and I think they're doing that, but I still don't think Marco's going to be happy with that. Although I will have to say, it must have been a pretty easy run and pretty consistent, because I think Marco had 2 almost identical laps, and we haven't seen that with very many of these guys.
So the last guy that has a shot at Carlos Munoz. Again, Munoz looking to set on the pole for the first time in his young career at 46 starts. In fact, that's what it would be. Hawksworth is the guy that's got a shot at him. Carlos Munoz, the 2-lap average at 217.137. Hawksworth would need something averaging in the 217 range, in fact, to knock Scott Dixon off the front row. Scott's 2-lap average at 216.901. Hawksworth takes the green flag this time by. We'll let you know what he's doing in terms of a warm-up speed. Not bad. 213.267 miles per hour. The 41 ABC supply machine from AJ Foyt Racing sets up for turn number 3.
Mark, he just passed the area that he talked about earlier today, said was a little tricky for him, and that was finding balance out of turn number 2. Hawksworth, if he talked to his teammate Takuma Sato might have told him to keep it a little bit lower. He's doing more so than the 14 machine did.
Lap number 1 is a slow one, 214.605 provisionally on the outside of row number 10. Hawksworth already back to turn 3.
Yep, here comes that white machine with the red and blue trim on it. Car number 41, Jack Hawksworth, keeps it down low, wheels along the white line.
Completing the run, Jack Hawksworth, lap number 2, 214.531. The 2-lap average outside of row number 10, 214.568 to Brad Gilley.
Marco Andretti, 5th quick in practice. He will start 12th here tomorrow night. Still one more practice session this evening. Was there something missing in the car during qualifying? What are you looking for?
Yeah, we got to go look at it. I mean, the car was good in qualifying, and we were more trim than Carlos, so there's not really a lot of explanation why the speed's not there.
All right, Marco Andretti will start 12th. Nick Yeoman is with our pole winner.
And his teammate will lead the field to the green for the first time in his career. Congratulations, Carlos Munoz. How great does it feel to grab this first career pole?
Oh, it's my first one. Nacer the hat. It looks really nice. It's first pole. Really, really happy for me, for all my team, for, after India, everything. My first pole, really happy with it. I have to thank my team on the half pull out of that. But, it's a long race tomorrow. So after this, just focus on the race for tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Carlos Munoz, the first-time pole sitter here, Mark, in the Verizon IndyCar Series.
I'll tell you, we'll come back, put the wraps on this qualifying session after this.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires, we make champions. Whatever you drive a Firestone.
You're clear deep to the track. Planes racing by your seat at 265 miles per hour. Pilots withstanding up to 10 G's of force right in front of you. Experience the thrill from closer than ever before. Red Bull Air Race World Championship. Witness the world's ultimate motorsport series at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, October 1st and 2nd. Tickets now on sale. More info at redbullairrace.com.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at the Texas Motor Speedway, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Starting lineup, row number 1, Carlos Munoz, your pole sitter, joined by Scott Dixon in the 9 machine. Row number 2, the 3 of Elio Castroneves, the 14 of Takuma Sato. And row number 3, 21 of Joseph Newgarden, the 22 of Simon Pagenaud. In row 4, the 12 of Will Power, the 10 of Tony Kanaan. Row 5, the 98 of Alexander Rossi, and the number 5 of James Hinchcliffe. Row number 6, the 28 of Ryan Hunter-Ray, and the 27 of Marco Andretti. Row 7, the 15 of Graham Rahal, the 20 of Ed Carpenter, the 83 of Charlie Kimball, and the 7 of Mikel Aloshin in row number 8. Row number 9, the number 2 of Juan Montoya, and the 11 of Sebastian Bourdais. And row number 10, the 8 of Max Chilton, the 41 of Jack Hawksworth. And rounding out the starting lineup, the 18 of Connor Daly, and the number 19 of Gabby Chavez, who did not attempt a qualifying run because of an incident. Well, Davey, again, for those that might be on their way here, you're going to see a great show in that final 30-minute warm-up at 6:45 this evening. It's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's definitely a definite preview for what tomorrow night's race is going to bring. And the exciting part with that, Mark, is we can take all these qualifying times, just throw them in a bag again and shake them up, because who knows what speeds and how fast guys are going to be after tonight's practice. But it's the most important practice of the whole weekend.
How many stops are you going to need to get through this one?
Well, you're going to need, I think it's a 4-stop race that you can get by with, but I don't be surprised the guys doing 5 and 6, just depending on how yellows fall and to get fresh tires on these cars as often as they can.
I hate to be talking about fuel strategy already. We wore that topic out last weekend, the last couple of weekends, in fact. But again, it's all part of racing. And if you can't be with us for that final warm-up session, then please join us for flag-to-flag coverage of the Firestone 600. That will be at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. Jay Query was out on the course. We had Brad Gilly and Nick Yeoman on pit road. Our driver analyst is Davey Hamilton. The director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network is Wally Levitt. On-site engineer and production by Rick Evans. Master control operations in our Indianapolis studios by Chris Pollock. I'm Mark Jane. So long for now from Texas Motor Speedway.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Sneva and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with all of these drivers in just a moment. Lou Palmer is in victory lane as A.J. Foyt takes now his victory lap around the 2.5 miles of Indianapolis. A record-breaking end to a record-breaking month. A.J. Foyt, the 4th win at Indianapolis. A month that saw the 200-mile-an-hour barrier broken, not just in the practice where it is unofficial, but in the qualifying by Tom Sneva, our second-place car at the moment. And then, too, the first woman to enter, to qualify, and to compete in a 500-mile race, Janet Guthrie of New York City. But for the moment, the name is A.J. Foyt of Houston, Texas. The car is his, a Coyote. The engine is his, a Foyt V8. And happiness, fame, and
Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 1, 2. We certainly know of Scott Dixon as the pilot of the number 9 machine and a guy that has multiple Verizon IndyCar Series championships. But Scott, outside of the car, I think about this first and foremost. Your 2 daughters are living in a much smaller world, I'm guessing, than the one you grew up in, because they have like 3 different home countries, correct? I mean, they've got to be pretty cosmopolitan right now, right? You're a father of 2.
Yeah, they're definitely well traveled. I think, Poppy was in, maybe 3 months old before she took the long trip to New Zealand, and then, soon after that to England. And, they've been to a lot of countries already, and Tilly was the same way. So it's really cool. And actually in Indianapolis, they go to the international school.
Stop. I just think my head's going to blow up. I know, but then I miss.
From Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth, Texas, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
30 minutes of prep time, all that remains for the Verizon IndyCar Series before they prepare for the 28th time to tackle Texas Motor Speedway. Tomorrow night's Firestone 600. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Janes. Happy to be joined in the broadcast booth by Jake Query. We've got a couple of guys down on pit road. Among them is Brad Gilley. But first, we welcome in Nick Yeoman. And Nick, you're talking to Dale Coyne about issues involving Gabby Chavez. He had a pretty hard hit in turn 4 in the morning warm-up.
It was, Mark, and it was right at the open of practice. Gabby, unfortunately, didn't get a chance to qualify. Dale, I know it's a little noisy with the cars heading out of the racetrack, but let's talk about Gabby Chavez. What was the plan of attack after the accident? Obviously missed qualifying, but what's the status of that car?
I think right now just get him back on the horse and get after it. So, we race downforce in it now. We had it trimmed quite a bit when he crashed. So I just think right now just getting comfortable again.
But parts of that car coming from some of the entries that you had at the 500?
Yeah, we had Pippa's car as a backup, so we had to take the rear end off of that car and make Gabby's car.
All right, so the good news is Gabby Chavez, they did have that car put back together, did see him on pit lane, so certainly some nervous moments. Again, the young Colombian driver did not get an opportunity to qualify, so he will start shotgun on the field, but the good news is he's got 30 minutes with the rest of these drivers, the other 21, to get up to speed here in race conditions at Texas Motor Speedway.
And again, we welcome Jake Query out in turn 4 for qualifying. He'll be back there for the race tomorrow night. The story of Gabby Chavez, go back to Indianapolis on qualifying day. The story of Mike Hall and that Ganassi team changing engines for Scott Dixon, something that normally takes 3 hours. It took 90 minutes. Jake, that's why people, to the layperson, they don't realize what a team sport this is and how much pressure those guys and gals over the wall are under.
No doubt about the fact it's a team sport, Mark. And when you look to Indianapolis and what that team did for Scott Dixon's car, keep in mind at that time they basically pooled the resources of all 4 stables that Chip Ganassi had. I mean, Max Chilton's team, Tony Kanaan, Scott Dixon's, all working together, Charlie Kimball's team, to get that engine in there. In this case, you hear about Dale Coyne mentioning you kind of put together a Frankenstein car, and I mean that, of course, respectfully so, but pieces coming from different cars that you've had. That's what it's all about, Mark. And, you know, I go back to what Davey Hamilton, our driver analyst, said before the Indianapolis 500 when you asked him, do you talk to your team before you get in the car for an Indianapolis 500 or race? And he said, absolutely, because those guys want to wear a ring just as badly as the driver does. So everybody has a hand in what we see here. And what we're going to see here tonight, I think, Mark, always fun to watch at Texas because we know there's 1 lane. We know there are probably at least 2 wide. Michaela Loshin said 4 if you're Russian, but typically 3. There's certainly a line where the cars like to be, but you can obviously stay low or stay in the middle groove if somebody is on your inside or outside.
We talked about it earlier today, how Sam Hornish Jr., when he ran for Panther Racing, was a master throughout the course of a weekend of working in that high groove on these tracks like Chicago and Kansas and here at Texas. Took a lot of races on the last lap and the last turn from a lot of drivers over the years. How about the good story of the pole sitter? First career pole for the driver of the 26, Carlos Munoz. Jake, I think after a couple of second-place finishes at the Indianapolis 500, he got his first win a year ago at Detroit. Now he gets his first pole here in Texas. I think Gabby, I think Carlos Munoz has arrived in terms of being a competitive force week in and week out here in the Verizon IndyCar Series.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think you have to look at, Mark, the fact that in the career of Carlos Munoz, when he came up through in the Indy Lights, you know, obviously he was somebody that we knew with a road and street course background was going to be able to be competitive probably right away when he came up into the Verizon IndyCar Series once he got used to these cars. But it's the ovals, in particular the fast ovals, where he has absolutely just become accustomed to and just had a good feel for it all the way around. Now here at Texas, in Indianapolis, he's been absolutely sensational. He reminds me a lot of his countrymen and a guy that mentored him a lot in Roberto Guerrero, just in his ability out of the box to be really, really good. But let's talk about here in Texas. He's only started here twice. He started in the top 5 once. He has a best finish of 6th. So, but Munoz absolutely, when it comes out here, you know he's fast, you know that he's comfortable, and Mark, he absolutely is one that is going to be in heavy contention, obviously, to finish at the same point where he started.
Munoz and Elio Castro-Neves hooked up as they set up for turn number 3. Munoz with about a 2-car length advantage, running about 7 car lengths behind them is the machine of Ryan Hunter-Reay. They make their way across the start-finish line. The Snapple machine of Marco Andretti is next, then Juan Montoya. Then we see a group behind them being led by Graham Rahal. Scott Dixon to the high side. He works his way off of turn number 2. So there's no question. We watch Bourdais, Gabby Chavez go side by side into one. Jake, they are seeing how these cars respond to the disruption in the air that comes with racing here in Texas.
You know, I would be surprised if you were to tell me that Ryan Hunter-Reay and Marco Andretti, his teammates, would be going out and trying out the different lines. It would surprise me if you told me that Andretti was the one that was taking the lower line and Hunter-Reay was taking the higher line. But that's what we're seeing right now. But typically, Mark, like you talked about, some drivers like Sam Hornish Jr. that prefer the outside line. When I think about guys going outside, Marco Andretti typically has been pretty comfortable going on the outside of a racetrack.
They come through the dog leg now, and Juan Montoya got awfully close to the high side of Marco Andretti. He'll let Juan slip past him now. Juan continues to pull away, starts to pull up on the DHL machine of Ryan Hunter-Reay at the midway point of the back straightaway. It looks like Scott Dixon among those hitting the button. He just cleared Ed Carpenter going into turn number 3. He and Graham Rahal trying to work in that extra groove to the high side through 3 and 4. Off the outside retaining wall back to the start-finish line, Carpenter and Dixon running side by side. Jake, we knew this would be a really good show in this final 30-minute warm-up.
2/3 of the field essentially is out right now taking advantage of this session, and yet with that 2/3, 90% of them are running together. And then you wait a little bit and you see Sebastian Bourdais, for example, fractured himself back, and you have 2 or 3 that are running. But it is that large pack, as you talked about, Castroneves, Munoz, and Montoya all right there. And there's that big gaggle that kind of is getting an idea of how these cars are going to respond in that dirty air.
Yeah, it's not the pack racing that Texas became famous for, in that you have, cars 2x2 in groups of 6, 7, or 8. But you'll have a couple of cars running side by side, and then behind them they get kind of strung out a bit, single file. But, cars 1 through 7 are still within striking distance of one another. Let's go down to pit road and check in with Brad Gilley.
Connor Daly, when he came here today to Texas Motor Speedway, had never run a lap in an Indy car at speed. In fact, his first laps were during that first practice session. Unfortunate, they haven't been able to find a lot of speed. In fact, of the cars that actually did go out to qualify on the track, they were the slowest. Connor Daly just went out for a few laps, said he's sort of getting confident now in his race car, but it feels sloppy to him. So they're going to try and work to get him comfortable in that car, so hopefully they can pick up some more speed.
Right now, 22nd quick is Connor Daly, and he qualified for the inside of row number 11. The only one that will start behind him will be the car of Gabby Chavez. That 19 machine, Nick Gilman, didn't get a turn of qualifying run, as you heard earlier from Dale Coyne.
Yeah, so certainly this 30-minute practice session, happy half hour, if you want to call it, is very important. Standing in the pit, Juan Montoya spoke with the crew, and they said this is exactly what they want to do. No real surprise to see Montoya out here during this practice session. They plan on leaving him out there as long as possible to work as much in traffic as possible. Mark, I think the biggest surprise in qualifying wasn't necessarily that Carlos Munoz was on the pole, was that Juan Montoya had such a miserable qualifying effort. He's going to drop at the drop of the green flag tomorrow. He's going to start 17th, so no real surprise that this Verizon crew for Juan Montoya, they're going to be not very busy down here on the pit box. Montoya's going to get plenty of track time to work in traffic.
Elio sees Ryan Hunter-Ray to his high side. He'll tow Juan Montoya along with him. Elio stuck to the bottom of the racetrack. Juan Montoya comes off of turn number 4, gets a nice run on Ryan Hunter-Ray into turn number 1. Elio is now 3rd in that pack. Carlos Munoz is there. Then you got to go ways back to get to Graham Rahal and the 22 of Simon Pagenaud. Jake, again, this session continues to be a spirited one. Guys taking a lot of advantage of the time of running in traffic.
Couple of things to watch for here for you folks that might be watching on Timing and Scoring and are curious about this. We talked about it with Davey earlier and I'll tell you what, Montoya and Hunter-Ray were side by side and really close heading into turn number 1. But you'll see some of those sparks come off the bottom of the car, particularly in the turns between 1 and 2 or between 3 and 4. Oftentimes that is one of two things. Either they are taking on full fuel tanks and that weight is just pushing down on the car to the point where if they hit any sort of a bump, it causes those sparks to fly. The other thing that Davey pointed out that I had not heard before was the fact, Mark, that sometimes if they're just adding a little more downforce to give them a little more confidence in the car itself, then that also can push that car down just a little bit. That's why it was surprising to see it in qualifying, because you think that car would be really, really trimmed out to give them as much speed as possible. But it's going to be really fun tomorrow night during the race to see some of those sparks come out under the lights here at Texas.
10 minutes into this 30-minute session, pretty good display put on by Ryan Hunter-Ray and Elio Castroneves. They went side by side for a couple of laps. Hunter-Ray is P1. Top 5, Tony Kanaan, Jack Hawksworth, Takuma Sato, and Joseph Newgarden here at Texas Motor Speedway.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires. We make champions. Whatever you drive a Firestone. You're a Kia team to the track.
Planes racing by your seat at 265 miles per hour. Pilots withstanding up to 10 G's of force right in front of you. Experience the thrill from closer than ever before. Red Bull Air Race World Championship. Witness the world's ultimate motorsport series at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, October 1st and 2nd. Tickets now on sale. More info at redbullairrace.com.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at the Texas Motor Speedway, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Final preparations for tomorrow night's Firestone 600 here at Texas Motor Speedway. Nick Yeoman will power today, qualified for the inside of row number 4.
And he has not turned a lot of laps here in this practice session. At last check, it was just 9. And right now on the speed charts, Will Power is just 21st. They're making wholesale changes on this race car. First, the attention was to the rear of the car. They changed the rear assembly, and I asked veteran general manager for Team Penske, Clive Howe, exactly what they were doing, and he said they have those rear wing assemblies set up for different downforce levels, so they're trying a little something different at the rear of that car. But that wasn't the only change. Now they're working on the front of that car, it looks like, on the dampers to try to get a little more stability for Will at the front of that car. So a lot of changes for Will Power, our most recent winner at Detroit, Mark.
Rahal, Dixon, Hunter Ray, those guys playing together between 1 and 2. Graham Rahal's going to slip in front of Ryan Hunter-Ray. He's got about a half a group below him on the racetrack. He decides to break that off and head to pit road. Meanwhile, coming off of turn number 4, Jake, Ryan Hunter-Ray is leading Scott Dixon. I believe that's the car of Simon Pagenaud, going to beat him to the start-finish line.
Yeah, Pagenaud is on the bottom. Then he starts to drift up a little bit. It forces Hunter-Ray to try to get his way up towards that number 3 line, then back to the middle of the racetrack. I think what we have found is if you are side by side, and this is no big surprise, but that aero draft is going to come to the car on the bottom side, especially through the turns, can sling themselves around and get a pretty good advantage coming off of turn number 2.
Mikel Aloshin and Max Chilton running in numerical order, 7 and 8, as they work their way down the main straightaway. We see Scott Dixon is heading to pit road for service, the 11 of Sebastian Bourdais. Jake, interesting that Bourdais' win at Detroit in race number 1 was such an impressive run in terms of the fuel strategy employed, and that just followed the theme set up by the win at the Indianapolis 500 by Alexander Rossi.
And keep in mind, Sebastian Bourdais also getting himself a top 10 at the Indianapolis 500 because of the fact, Mark, of fuel strategy. Bourdais was right there in the mix of things. He was in that group that had to pit inside of the single-digit laps left, but they played it pretty smart with Sebastian Bourdais at Indianapolis as well, and you got to figure everybody is going to be figuring out everything they can in terms of the fuel efficiency, perhaps saving fuel. Anytime you get on a track this fast, it's always going to be something that comes into play.
You know, we haven't given him really a proper introduction. We did so earlier today, but let's welcome back in our good friend Brad Gilley, who lives here in Texas. He, of course, part of our family during the Brickyard 400 here at the IMS Radio Network. Also spends a lot of his weekends with our good friends from Performance Racing Network. So Brad, sorry that we didn't properly welcome you this time, but what's going on pit road?
No problem at all. Right now, Graham Rahal is in. They've actually got the front cover of that car off. You remember in the first practice session, they actually had to exit early because of a gearbox issue. He ended up qualifying 13th, and right now he is 12th on the speed chart. What Graham's complaining of on the handle of his race car, said he needs just a little more front grip. So they're going to try and work on that before they send him back out so he can get the balance that he wants.
You know, Jake, it really doesn't necessarily relate to what we're doing here, but so thrilled to have Brad with us now for a couple of years here at Texas. I think people understand the job that Doug Rice, the anchor of PRN, does, blending our staff and the PRN staff together for the Brickyard 400. We really have a lot of fun with that broadcast.
You know, Mark, speaking of Doug and Brad as well, and those guys coming up, Doug Rice had posted on social media this week, Mark, that his brother had passed away after a long illness, and Doug had commented to me about how much he'll miss his brother, but absolutely, when we saw that, all of us, look, those guys are good friends, obviously, and goes without saying that all of us pass along our condolences, not just to Doug, but obviously his entire family on that loss.
Very well put. Nick Yeoman.
I had a chance to catch up with our good friend from IndyCar Ministries, David Storbick. Hot enough here in Texas for you, my friend?
I love it here in Texas. This is awesome.
Tell us a little bit about what you guys have planned. I know it's always another busy weekend for IndyCar Ministries.
It is. We have a Mass at 2:30 tomorrow and a chapel service at 3 o'clock. That's in the Media Center and the Victory Theater there.
I had a chance earlier, Mark Janes and I and Brad Gilley, we all sat in on the drivers' meeting. You guys are everywhere offering the prayer services to these drivers. How many times do you think you're doing that throughout the course of the weekend?
Well, IndyCar it wants us to open every driver meeting with a prayer, which is an honor, and it is sometimes unique to a race series. So we're glad to be a part of that. And of course, we offer prayer to every driver before every race, and then we also come through the grid and we offer prayer to the teams before that, and then also the Hamaltro safety crews. So we spend a lot of time praying on the race weekend.
Now, certainly, we've been coming to Texas for many, many years. Here in a couple weeks, going to head to Road America, Elkhart Lake for the first time in quite a while. You guys will be there as well, correct?
Yeah, we're excited about that as well. We're going to be, we have all 4 of the series there with the feeder series. We also are going to have our show car and fan outreach booth there in Road America in the fan area.
Have a great rest of the weekend. Appreciate talking to you as always.
Thanks.
All right, that's David Storbeck again from IndyCar Ministries. A lot of great work throughout the course of the season, Mark Janes.
Not sure what the issue is with the machine of Ryan Hunter-Reay, but we certainly see that crew pouring over the rear of that race car, and they're most notably focusing on the right side. They don't seem to be expressing any sense of urgency in terms of addressing it, but we haven't seen Ryan head back out either. He's currently P2 as Joseph Newgarden goes to the top of timing and scoring. So to give you an idea of where things stand in terms of times and speed, 213.318 for Joseph Newgarden. He's P1. And Ryan Hunter-Reay, Tony Kanaan, Jack Hawksworth, Takuma Sato, the top 5. 6th is Bourdais. 7th is Chilton. 8th is Hinchcliffe. 9th is Scott Dixon. 10th is Juan Montoya. 11th is Marco Andretti. 12th is Graham Rahal. 13th is Helio Castroneves. 14th, Mikel Aloshin. 15th, Ed Carpenter. Gabby Chavez is 16th. Simon Pagenaud is 17th. Carlos Munoz is 18th. Alexander Rossi is 19th. Charlie Kimball is 20th. Will Power is 21st. And Connor Daly is 22nd. Jake, a weekend off next weekend for the Verizon IndyCar Series. Although I believe there's some tests planned perhaps at Watkins Glen if memory serves me correctly. But it's been a grind for these teams and these drivers going back several weeks now.
Well, there's no doubt not only about that. Laundry starts to pile up, among other things, right? But look, I think that time off allows them, Mark, to get ready for a place that, let's be honest, every guy who has run at Road America is excited about going there. And I think the anticipation is building to be able to go back to a place, and then Watkins Glen as well. I mean, we know what happened with Boston, but then you add Watkins Glen.
That made that go away in a hurry.
Yeah, you want to talk about hitting a home run on that. I talked to Joseph Newgarden earlier this week, and he's never run Watkins Glen, and was telling me how excited he is just because of the history of the track and the track itself. So some really good venues coming up, and I think venues that the drivers are very excited about.
I got to admit, when the announcement was made, video got posted about some of the previous stops that we made, and I go back to the video that they posted of the scuffle between Sam Hornish Jr., Sam Hornish Sr., and Tony Kanaan.
I had forgotten.
And there's a
all
fairly
about
young pit reporter wearing a red, white, and blue fire suit that's right there in the middle of that. And Jake Query has no idea where to look. He knows something's happening, but he doesn't know where to look. You were right in the middle of all of that.
That was a fat guy with less gray hair is what that was. Now, I remember not only that, but then it spilled kind of back into the paddock area, and I remember talking with Michael Andretti and Kanaan, and yeah, that was bizarre stuff. Yeah. That was 07 or 08, I think.
Yeah,
that was fun, though.
It's been a while, there's no doubt. And there were some spirited shows there at Watkins Glen, and we're thrilled to have the opportunity
Mark, let's
to
be
go
honest,
back there for
I
sure.
didn't know what I was doing in any of this deal till about 2012. So, I mean, come on, right?
Under 10 minutes to go in this session, and whatever the issue was with Ryan Hunter-Reay, they got him back out, and he's back up full song now as he works his way down the main straightaway. Kind of run it all by his lonesome. Just behind him, though, there's Helio Castroneves, Mikel Aloshin, the number 5 of James Hinchcliffe, and others working their way off of turn number 2. And I believe that's the 98 machine of Rossi, who came off of the racetrack right in the middle of that pack. As he did so, a couple of cars jumped in front of him to head to pit road for service. Now Ryan Hunter-Reay sees some company as he crosses the start-finish line. The 15 of Graham Rahal is there. Then it's Hinch, then it's Marco, then it's Simon Pagenaud. Connor Daly is running with Pagenaud. Connor goes to the high side and gets a nice runner. Maybe that's Charlie Kimball down the banking. Those cars pretty similar from this far away. They're headed down the back straightaway now as we find ourselves high just past the start to finish line, high atop the main straightaway. There goes Munoz, your pole sitter, then Graham Rahal. Joseph Newgarden is out there putting that car through the paces, and you mentioned it early on that there's no mistaking that car of Joseph Newgarden with that paint scheme that they put on it for this weekend.
I've been trying to think of the proper color of green to describe it. I mean, obviously Ed Carpenter's Fuzzy's Ultra Premium Vodka machine is that dark forest green that we've become familiar with, but a sharp lime green. What color are we going with for Joseph Newgarden?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's in the box of 64.
Exactly.
I can't. I'm with you. I can't quite put my finger on it. Kanaan comes down the main straightaway, and that number 10 machine is off the pace a little bit. It didn't sound strong when it went by, and we hope there's not an issue for TK, but Jake, he is very, very slow down the back straightaway.
Munoz, Newgarden, Ryan Hunter-Reay come through turn number 1 in the middle of a pack, and indeed Kanaan is now working his way between turns 3 and 4. Maybe it may be that they want to see how he runs out there. They're working on something where they want to get it in some sort of a clean air, or maybe he does have the issue, but very, very slowly Tony Kanaan now works his way towards the bottom of the racetrack, then back to the middle of the racetrack, but he's going to have to get on his giddy-up mark. He's about to get a lot in his mirror here.
He's third quick, and you can see he picked up the pace quite a bit as the field starts to catch him. Marco Andretti leads that freight train with Munoz behind him, then Hinch. We see Ryan Hunter-Reay and Newgarden all in that pack, and Tony Kanaan is back up to full song now as he exits turn number 4 and comes down the main straightaway. Kanaan has quite an advantage over Marco. Marco sees Munoz dance to his high side into turn number 1. They'll stay stuck together until they get to turn 2. Marco lifts a little bit, which provides some room for Ryan Hunter-Reay. He moves up, shuts the door on his teammate. Ryan had to lift a little bit. Now they run side by side. Marco backs out, allowing Ryan Hunter-Reay to break away. Now Munoz to the high side, comes down the straightaway. He's in pursuit of Tony Kanaan. Elio is trying to keep pace with Carlos Munoz as we speak. And we look at Charlie Kimball and James Hinchcliffe. They are stuck together side by side. So no doubt about it, Jake, they're putting these cars through the paces. They want to find out exactly how these cars are going to perform under race condition tomorrow night. And these conditions right now we think are very, very similar.
And I don't know if he just decided to back off of it, if perhaps something happened there with Marco Andretti, but everybody easily getting past him there coming out of turn number 2. That Snapple machine falls back of that pack. Mark, also one thing to keep in mind, this racetrack right now is under cloud cover from the time you get to the short chute between 3 and 4 all the way until you get back to turn number 2. It is only the backstretch essentially that is under sun, but it is saturated with sun, so maybe a little bit of different track temperature as well as you come out of turn number 2.
Hunter-Reay, Munoz goes side by side. They're towing Elio Castroneves through turn number 2. A little more than 5 minutes remain in this final warm-up in preparations for tomorrow night's Firestone 600 here at Texas Motor Speedway.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires, we make champions. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
The Sports Car Vintage Racing Association returns to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 3rd annual Brickyard Vintage Racing Invitational, featuring over 500 vintage race cars. It's Father's Day weekend, June 16th through the 19th. Get your dad a gift he'll never forget and bring him to see the Indy Legends Pro-Am Charity Race, pairing pros and amateurs driving Camaros, Mustangs, and Corvettes. Experience something cool with your dad for this Father's Day weekend. Tickets start at just $5. Children 12 and under are free. For tickets and information, go to IMS.com.
From the Firestone broadcast booth at the Texas Motor Speedway, this is the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Nick Yeoman, from your position on pit road, you've been an interested spectator in some of the trust these drivers are displaying as they run in these close quarters.
Mark, I promise you I'm working down here. It's hard not to just be a race fan and look up at that big Haas TV, especially over the last 5, 10, 15 laps, watching Ryan Hunter-Reay and Carlos Munoz, those two teammates, working together side by side, wheel to wheel around this racetrack for multiple laps. And that's the type of trust, Mark, that I think you only gather through time. Again, we saw those Andretti Autosport teammates work in tow the entire month of May. All 5 of them, with Townsend Bell, was a part of that group as well. So it's been awful impressive, a lot of fun to watch. Some of these guys lean on each other respectfully. A lot of that respect will go out the window tomorrow night, as we saw James Hinchcliffe just about make contact with Graham Rahal there into one. But it is a lot of fun to watch, Mark. A lot of the truck teams that are coming out here getting ready for their race, they're getting a bird's eye view, a good opportunity to watch some of the stars of the Verizon IndyCar Series turn laps here at Texas.
Under 4 minutes to go in the session, and the 8 of Max Chilton is limping very slowly toward pit in, and I hope he's able to clear the pit in and get himself close to the pit wall. Jake, he's almost to a stop. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it all the way down pit road or not, but it looks like he's going to be close enough to his crew to where they can push him into the pit box, and luckily he won't bring out a yellow ending the last 3 minutes of this session.
As you know, Mark, we love interacting with race fans, and it's one of the things that truly makes our job enjoyable, knowing that people are listening and enjoying what we're doing. Maybe not what we're doing, but enjoying what we are seeing and relaying to them. Now, several recommendations here on the color of green of Joseph Newgarden's car. Vincent says dill pickle green. The dill pickle, I think, is just a little bit darker. I'm not sure how you pronounce the liqueur, but absinthe, is that how you pronounce the liqueur that is green? That actually is the exact color. Somebody else says electric green, says Kate.
I'm from Monrovia. I don't say liqueur.
Good point. I think here's the thing: sour apple or granny apple green. It actually looks like a caramel apple because it's got a little bit of the gold on there as well. But I'm going sour apple green.
Alicia Hodop said chrome lime green or something. Alicia, I'm sorry, I have to find your tweet that you sent to me.
You know Nick knows how to pronounce the liqueur.
You know what I like? I kind of like Seattle Seahawk green. You know, the new green that they've introduced?
Yeah, kind of a neon green.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly stands out. I like it, though. I like the sour apple green, though. I think that might be a winner.
Alicia says fuzzy chrome emerald green.
Oh, emerald. There we go. Emerald's good.
And our good friend Mike Thompson, listening in Indianapolis, said he appreciated that's not one in the box of 64. That's he appreciated that.
Custom made for kids that grew up in the 70s. With the crayon sharpener in the back.
That's right.
Yeah. I never got the 48 box. I always thought the 48 box was more convenient.
We pride ourselves on the focus that we maintain here as we continue our preparations for the Firestone 600. Graham Rahal is now gone P1, so we've got a different badge at the top. That is, of course, Honda. And Jake, they continue to get their game up. They've got 2 of the first 3 now. Rahal, Newgarden in the Chevy, and then Hunter-Reay in the Honda is P3.
Comes to these ovals, Honda obviously found something that worked. We saw it in Indianapolis, and I think just they worked so hard, I think, on the aero kits, but didn't necessarily have the horsepower to go with it a year ago, and then they figured out what they needed to complement and put the two together for a really good combination, and we're starting to now see the payoff with it.
Jake, I really, really hope that what we have seen in this session is what you and I are going to get the chance to call tomorrow night. I mean, I go back for years throughout the late 1990s and through the early portions of 2000 when I was up high atop the condos in Turn 2 and Mike King was in the booth. I mean, we were just exhausted after the race was over because, I mean, lap after lap, just packs of 5 and 6, 7 cars. And I know some worry about the danger involved in that style of racing, and many of these drivers, quite frankly, aren't comfortable with it. And that's the ride of every generation and how it changes. But certainly you'd like to see it pack up a little bit more and be a bit more compelling as the checkered flag comes out.
Hey, if last year what we saw at Fontana is any indication, Mark, then we're in for a heck of a lot of fun because that was as much fun as I've had calling a race.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And Phoenix was great. The other thing, these cars, when you get out here under the lights, it just looks, the way the colors come off with the lights beaming off of them when they get there, out throughout the track and all the different colors dancing around. It really is a sight to be seen.
Well, and this must-go lighting system, I mean, when it was installed here, it was absolutely state-of-the-art. And I think the thing that's most impressive about it, Jake, is that when the sun goes down and the lights start to take over, it's such a gradual change, you almost don't even notice it by the time that the lights have taken control of this racetrack.
Of course, this racetrack also is going to change probably somewhat from the beginning of the race to later, because this track, it will be so warm at the beginning, but it'll stay pretty warm with those track temperatures. We talked earlier about the fact, Mark, that each team has 11 sets of tires, Firestone Firehawks, 11 sets. Those tires should not actually be any sort of a victim to the heat. They can take up to 200 degrees on those tires themselves, but tire strategy comes into play. Although this weekend, Mark, let's face it, it's been a relatively light workload in terms of those tires, because you're looking essentially 2 practice sessions, a qualifying session, and then the race itself.
Yeah, I mean, this session, Jake, was probably the most important of the weekend, especially to those that felt like that they didn't get whatever issues they had in the practice session solved during qualifying. And again, we talked about it earlier. I think the thing that's most significant about this session is the first time they've been able to run in the conditions in which they will race, and that's very, very important. Let's give you the full field rundown. Graham Rahal ends up P1. Joseph Newgarden is P2. Ryan Hunter-Ray 3rd. Tony Kanaan 4th. Jack Hawksworth 5th. Takuma Sato is 6th. 7th, Marco Andretti. 8th, Sebastian Bourdais. 9th, Max Chilton. But again, the cars shut off on him on the backstretch late in the session. Scott Dixon is 10th. Quick. James Hinchcliffe. Carlos Munoz 12th. 13th, Charlie Kimball. 14th, Juan Montoya. 15th, Elio Castro-Neves. 16th, Mikel Aloshin. 17th, Ed Carpenter. Great job of that Dale Coyne crew getting that number 19 machine of Gabby Chavez put back together. Gabby was able to get out, turn 35 laps in this session. He was 18th quick. 19th to Simon Pagenaud. 20th to Alexander Rossi. 21st to Will Power. And 22nd was Connor Daly in that 18 machine. Well, don't forget, tomorrow night we'll have flag-to-flag coverage of the Firestone 600 for you. We'll take the air with the pre-race festivities, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. Our thanks to our on-site producer and chief engineer, Rick Evans. The director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network is Wally Levin. Brad Gilley, Nick Yeoman, a great job on pit road as always. For Jake Query, I'm Mark Janes. So long for now from Texas Motor Speedway.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand